Hey everybody, it's Peter. This is the 2024 Ford Mustang GT 5-liter V8. It happens to be a convertible, and in this video I'm going to try to show you a number of things that the other videos aren't showing you. But before I go into that, I really hope you'll stay with me through the intro because there's a personal connection to this car, and I think it's why so many of us relate to this car. When I was 17, I got to drive my first 5-liter Mustang. First gear, no problem. Second gear, this isn't so bad. And I gave it the gas and the rear end stepped out. And that was the beginning of my understanding of performance cars. And those of us that are worried about the loss of these cars, let's be honest, GM, Chrysler, they've closed the book on these cars. It's done. Ford went the other way. Ford, who is probably a leader in the EV market space, brought us a new Mustang with the 5-liter V8. That's unheard of, and in my mind, this is probably the very last one. And I want to talk to you about, if you're considering this car, why this car, this specific Mustang, is so important. And it relates back to my experience with that Mustang. See, we always talk about the loss of this V8 sound, and when you touch the remote on this car, you can make the exhaust rev right up. It sounds pretty cool. I mean, EVs make noises when you touch the remote. I have a Tesla where if I hit the button on my phone, it'll fart. But there's a difference between noise and a language. A fart noise is just noise. This speaks a language, and as I learned to drive performance cars, what I learned is that as that power builds and that noise builds, that noise, that sound, that melody was actually communicating to me. When you're driving around the track or even just a country road and you want to dance the car a little bit, as that torque builds and the sound builds, you can hear what's going on, and that can tell you when it's going to step out. So what scared me as a 17-year-old became very fun later in life. And what's so awesome about this car is it doesn't just give you feedback through the steering wheel, through the pedals, through the seat of your pants. It gives you feedback. It speaks a language through the sound. And if you've never spoken that language, this is a car you have to consider before they're all gone. So like I said, we're going to talk about this car in detail. We're going to talk about what makes this car special and unique and different and why it matters and why you should consider it. And we're going to show you things that other videos aren't showing you. But if you've never considered this car and you don't understand why people are so enamored with the noise, I mean, if you've driven a Camry all your life, then sure, you can move to an EV and it's not much of a language change. But if this is your kind of car, moving to an EV is going to be a jump. And yeah, Ford has the Mustang Mach-E, and I'm going to review that. And I'm a big fan of it. I think it's a very, very good EV. But today we're talking about this car. So let's get going with the review. So before we go too far, I have to thank Riverview Ford here in Fredericton, New Brunswick. They give me access to this vehicle, and in this video there's going to be questions that I answer and ones that I don't get to. If you have a question about this car that you don't have an answer to, make sure you let me know in the comments below, because Riverview Ford, their team is awesome here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, but they also give me access to their entire product line. If you have a question that I don't answer in this video, I get to come back to this car, to other cars, and make sure we build a video database of answers. So ask me in the comments. Let me know the kinds of things you want to know about this car, and I'll answer you both in the comments and in future videos. And like I said, because they give me complete access, we can come back to this exact car or other models just like it again and again and again to make sure that you get the answers you need. So do me a favor, hit the subscribe button if you're interested in this or any other Ford vehicle. Like I said, we got the Mach-E coming up tomorrow as well. Lots of cars from here that we'll have access to, and we'll be getting going. So let's talk about this car. What we really like about Mustangs is not what the original was. The original was described by Carroll Shelby as a secretary's car. Now this, I don't know what that means, but it's probably not that. This is what we know and love about the Mustang, is what Carroll Shelby brought to it. And the reason this one's good is because a lot of us are tied to various eras of the Mustang. That was the peak. But every Mustang had its flaws, and we remember the good parts, but we forget other parts. The Fox body Mustang, yeah, it was brought out to be an economy car in some cases. It had a 4-cylinder, weak engine at the time because of fuel efficiency stuff. And as they moved through, some of them were styling exercises, some of them were, add more power and who cares about handling. But what you have here is a fully modern Mustang and a fully modern muscle car. And what that means is they have to handle. Now this particular one, if you watch other reviews or read other reviews, you're going to find auto reviewers who are taking cars to the track every day, and they'll tell you that this one could handle a little tiny bit better. And the reality is Ford knows that. There's a dark horse model of this coming that will handle a little better. But the average Mustang driver, the average Mustang 5-liter GT driver, might take it to the drag strip, you might even take it to the racetrack. But most of your driving is going to be around town, doing your thing, country roads, city streets, showing it off to friends, taking friends out. You can take 3 people in here with your driver. And that's where this car really shines. And what I like about the 2024 is they haven't just modernized the look, it's a slight refresh on the outside, but they've transformed the inside to bring it up to modern standards. People are going to complain about the screens inside. We're going to take a look at them. If you don't want the screens inside, there's a previous model Mustang for you. But what this car does with its modern technology while still keeping the language of a muscle car and in fact enhancing that language of a muscle car is really impressive. So let's get going with inside right now, because the outside you can see the GT model has a functional vent up here where you can feel that V8 engine breathing out of there, has a little bit different look to the outside, great looking wheels, but it's inside that this vehicle really changes, and it's the technology of this car that make it special. So let's dive inside and start taking a look at some of those features. So I mentioned the look here, and you can see here on this convertible model, you've got, again, the same idea as the coupe. You've got a really sharp edge here. It's definitely identifiable as a new Mustang, but it's obviously familiar. You've got great looking wheels down here, which again, black wheels, hard to show on camera, but you can see them. One thing that you may not notice here is the Brembo brakes out front here on this trim line. So Brembo brakes in behind there. Awesome looking car. This car screams performance, but again, it talks about street performance. Let's show you the key fob real quick because before we jump in, pop the trunk, remote start the vehicle, lock, unlock, and of course you can use that key fob to remote rev that. Now I'll be honest, there are better videos to show that rev and the remote rev, so feel free to click across to some of those. I haven't got the best audio equipment to really capture it. It kind of just washes out in my mics, but you can see that, you can do that on this car, and you can only do that with the 10-speed automatic transmission. And I should point out 10-speed automatic transmission, again, there's still a manual transmission as well in this. So jumping inside this car, we're gonna leave the top down because I think some people are concerned about screens in a top-down car. Now, there is always glare on camera, there's always more glare on camera. I can tell you right now, I don't see the glare that you see. You can see me reflecting in there, but what I do want you to focus on is, again, keep in mind cameras don't show the screens nearly as well as you see them in person. And even though there's a reflection here, I want you to know that you can see it clearer in person than you can in the camera. So that is something worth noting. Now, if we want to put the top up, it's pretty simple. I'll show you here. You're just going to press this button here and it comes up from the back. We're on a wide angle camera right here, so it's skewing the view a little bit, but you can see it comes up like that. Pretty simple stuff. And it closes in. So this is something you can do very quickly if you're stopped, which means you're going to use the top all the time. Single handle in the middle here to pull it down and secure it, which I'm going to do with 2 hands to make sure I get it right. Anyways, that's how simple it is to put the top up. All right, so top up, windows up. This is still a car that feels like a coupe. It is not so hard to see out of that it's, you know, Camaro-like. It's actually pretty good. You've got good visibility around you. Even the convertible pillars that are normally not super helpful, if you spin around here, whoops, camera work is terrible there. Yes, there is a big pillar there, but the back window is actually pretty usable for a convertible, and of course you have camera systems here, which we'll just show you that to start off right now. Throw the thing in reverse right there, and you've got a crystal clear camera with also your parking sensors. Again, these are gonna both beep at you and light up in various colors, red, green, and yellow, to show you what's behind you. So you really don't have any issues backing up this car. It's actually very easy to control. I just realized I have my seat cooler on, and I don't want that on, so we'll turn that fully off. Oh, we'll turn the climate system, which was off, back to off. Oh boy, let's put it out of park here. All right, fan off, we'll go to off. All right, car is all off. So now let's take a look at this screen. Now, one thing worth pointing out is you can get this car with 2 screens, which to me looks a little different. You have a screen for the dash and you have a screen over here. Now, effectively, this also is 2 screens, but it looks like 1 panel. What I'm a little bit upset about, and some Mustang traditionalists may be upset about, is you always used to have the dual cockpit view. So you had a single cockpit here, a flat area here, and a single cockpit here. What this does is a more of a traditional driver-centric cockpit. I don't really mind it. I think it makes more sense in some cases than that dual cockpit, but again, it loses a little bit of what was a Mustang. Again, sometimes traditionalists aren't gonna love the new updates. So let's talk about the dash here. A big thing you guys know is we can customize this dash. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go in and show you how to do that really quickly here. We're gonna go to our home button here. Let's just go home. Oh, we are home. So let's go into our features. And then we're going to go into My Mustang, and then we're going to go into not auxiliary gauges. Auxiliary gauges gives you the auxiliary gauges in this screen, but keeps this screen over here. So we're going to back out of that, and we're going to go down to your, where are we? Cluster theme. Cluster theme is a lot. So here's sort of a preview of what everyone is. You can put it in sport, you can put it in track, you can put it in calm, and then you can put it in the Fox Body Mustang 87 to 93. And as we do that, you can see this is Fox Body Mustang stuff. Now, if you're my age, which remember, I'm 15 years after the original Mustang came out, this is what you remember. So what this tells me is a lot of Ford guys are probably similar age to me, or maybe a hair older, and this is the Mustang they remember. I think this is cool because, again, it's about speaking that language. And you can even see the speedometer. It shows in miles per hour, even though we're in Canada here, and has a kilometer-hour section there, which is just cool. This is like the original Mustang. But to me, there was a missed opportunity. Why not put all the different Mustangs in here? Why not put the original Mustang look in here? Maybe a software update could do that in the future, but again, there's lots of options. And again, as you switch through some of these, you can see in the dash here, as we go back to calm, there are various displays in here. So let's go back to the normal section here. We'll leave it there because, again, this car, somebody's going to want to buy it and have a look at what it comes like. And then you also have the custom modes. So right now you have a drag mode it's in, track mode, you can put it in here, and it sort of shows you what goes on. So the drag mode here, let's just show you, come in here, adaptive dampers there. You've got the traction control on, that kind of thing. So you can cycle through your drive modes. And as you do these things, you can get the dash to change sometimes too. You can adapt the dash to what you want, so it tells you what the steering is, what the traction control is. Instrument cluster, you can choose, again, the instrument cluster that you want for the various modes in the track mode, for instance. So then we can go to the sport mode here. As you go through the sport mode, it tells you what you can do with them. You can adapt different things, right? So all of that is there, right? And there's the modes here, but normal, all that kind of stuff. But what I want to show you is what happens in the dash when you use the mode buttons right here on the steering wheel. You don't have to go through the screen to change these. So you can go through here. You get a little screen here to say, hey, this is what your normal mode's going to look like. Again, ignore that glare. That's your normal dash. Then you come through here, and you come up to the custom mode. We'll skip that one. Slippery mode. So if you're driving in slippery conditions, throw snow tires on this, you can drive it through the winter, no problem. Just put it in slippery mode. And we come up through here. We're going to zip through them all. Drag strip mode, track mode, and you have all of these like icons here that sort of change. Now, I think there's probably a little delay in loading the entire car up, and they give you these icons to do that. But you can do this from your steering wheel as well as from the dash. So let's just take a quick look at the steering wheel, what you have here. Those mode buttons is what I was playing with there. And then you have all the modern stuff you would want on a modern car. Now again, some traditionalists aren't gonna like the screens, aren't gonna like some of this stuff, but you have adaptive cruise control. This is an expensive car. When you spend this money on a car in 2024, which is what this car is, you're going to want to get certain things. So you have the adaptive cruise control here. You have the lane centering type technology or lane following system there. You have the blind spot detection in the mirrors. The mirrors are nice small mirrors here, but they're effectively placed. And again, if I zoom in a little bit here, there you go on the top left of the mirror, there is your blind spot warning, so you can see that there. Let's go full wide angle as we come back to the steering wheel here. You have typical Ford stuff in your controls over here. So you have your heated steering wheel there, volume over here, other menu controls right there. Over in this dash area, you're going to lose your climate controls as regular controls, but I have no issue with that. One little secret to a modern car is, for most of us, what we need to be doing is not be playing with our climate stuff. Just set it to auto and forget it. Now you can, in a convertible, play with it a little bit. You can see if you turn the fan speed, you can turn it to on or off or whatever, but you're just tapping it off and the whole climate system turns off when you're driving a convertible. What I think is cool about this is, oops, I didn't really actually get it to off there. There we go, we've turned it off now there. So again, climate control systems, I don't mind when you throw it in the dash because they're always available, so that works just fine. You can adjust the temperature, you can adjust your seating, which is again, seat heating, seat cooling, so you've got passenger and driver's stuff there. And then coming down here, you've got your typical controls down here, customized buttons as well, so you can customize up that button. And you still have what has become the traditional location for your start-stop button on a Mustang down there. Down here, Ford does a good job, USB-C and USB-A. You've got a 12-volt port there as well still. And then let's talk about this 10-speed transmission. It's a 10-speed transmission, and in an engine that sounds this good, you might think, oh, I'm gonna miss out on letting it rev. Well, this thing is tuned very well to let you rev, to do its thing. And honestly, I think it's probably the transmission that most Mustang buyers should buy. There are the purists that want the manuals, and that makes 100% sense. Go get the manual, you can still get it. But I think for a lot of people who do their everyday driving in a car like this, that makes the most sense. Now, what's cool is this switch style e-brake. It is an e-brake, but it's also a sort of fun brake. When you used to drive, those of us who had front-wheel drive cars in the snow used to pull this around and do donuts in the snow. This car can do that through this brake, through some of the drive modes. So we'll sort through some of them as well, which is pretty cool. Overall space, let's flip the camera around for a second and show you what it looks like with me inside. So overall in a convertible, sometimes convertibles don't have great headspace. I can move the seat up or down, that kind of thing, and I've got tons and tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of space. So if you're very short, even when I crank this all the way up and touch my head to the headliner at 6 feet tall and then have to scratch like this, if you're very short, you're gonna be comfortable in this car. If you're very tall, this car will work as well. A lot of convertibles can be tight, and again, all the way down, you have a ton of headroom there. So at 6 feet, I fit fine. Now, where you're gonna suffer is like you've always suffered. If you're about 6 feet tall and you plan on sticking adults in the back, you're gonna have to compromise on your driving position. It is just tight back there. It always has been in a Mustang. I can create some space for them, but let's be honest, this is not a Lincoln Navigator. The rear seats in this thing are tight. So overall, Mustang stuff still lives here. Very sporty driving experience. Seating position is excellent. The relation to the steering wheel is also excellent. I have it moved forward for the video, but of course it's tilt and telescopic, so you can pull it out and bring it down to you nice and close, which means you can get the really good driving position that you want, which means you can really experience this car like it's meant to be experienced. Now there's a few more things in the screen here. I want to show you them, so let's flip the camera back around and show you some of them. So taking a look in the center screen here, I want to be really clear about one of the key benefits of a modern Mustang over a previous generation Mustang. Like I said, when I started off the top talking about my 17-year-old experience of having the car get squirrely on me, that can be both dangerous and fun. And the problem with older Mustangs is you had to kind of figure out where that dangerous and fun line was. What I love about modern Mustangs is they have the technology to keep you in place. So if you needed to just lock up on the rear end and do that, lock up without loosening up, it can do that. But if you want it to be playful, it can do that as well. And a lot of that now is controlled through modern electronics. And I can give you an example of how Ford has really jumped into what this is. Again, not so much the Secretary's car, but more of the theory of Carroll Shelby of what a Mustang should and could be. So first of all, you've got the drift brake. That was the word I was looking for earlier that I could not find with that brake. That allows you to pull that e-brake and do exactly that. Pull drifts. You've got the line lock on this car. If you're going to a racetrack, to a drag strip, excuse me, you can lock out those front wheels. You can really get this thing ready to go so that you can launch well for a drag race. So that's going to allow you to really compete with those EVs a little bit more because you get that hard launch off the line. You've got lap timers. You can take the regular tracks well, brake performance, acceleration timer. You've got all these things built in here. The electronics are built in to give this car some fun, to make sure it can do things more easily than other Mustangs could do. So it still gives you all of the fun stuff, but it allows you to unlock certain pieces when you want to use them rather than using just your right foot to find out where those limits are. So this is just really good technology in here. So let's talk about who this Mustang is for, because I don't think it's for every Mustang driver. I think this is a Mustang that people who have never experienced that Mustang language, that V8, 5-liter V8, naturally aspirated, rear-wheel drive, muscle car, sports car experience, I think that's who this car is really aimed at. Because the traditional Mustang person may not like some of the modern pieces that are in this car, but let's be honest, this isn't your typical Mustang from the past. It's moved up in price class, and it absolutely has to compete with cars in its current day price class, and that means a lot more electronics, really good screens. Now I will say about the screens, the technology, the software, everything in there is both easy to use, very effective, and visually pleasing. Those are all part of the experience of this car. Some cars, the screens can make it more confusing. This one is not that. So if you are ready to move to screens and you're like, you want a traditional car, I don't think you'll be intimidated by these screens. I will say though, that I think because this is the last one, if you've never had a vehicle that's a rear-wheel drive muscle car with a 5-liter V8 naturally aspirated, if you've never driven there or driven those or had those, this is the car to get. You just have to experience this at some point in your life. And the reason this one's great for you is because it's not all about finding the limits with your right foot and the steering and all that stuff. It's gonna allow you through the electronics to choose when you wanna have the fun that it can bring and to choose when it can be the regular car that you need it to be, because let's face it, this is probably still going to be your everyday driver. Those of you lucky enough to have this as your sports car, hang on for the dark horse model. I think that's the one to get. It's going to be expensive, it's going to be hard to get, but I think it's the one to get if it's your second car, if it's your true sports car. That being said, this would make a pretty cool second car too. It's just expensive enough and good enough that you want to drive it every day. So, who is it for? People who have never experienced it. Who else is it for? This is your last 5-liter V8 around. Dodge, gone. GM, gone. There are no more muscle cars. They're not making them anymore. Ford didn't say, let's give up on this. They said, we're gonna give it one last run. I don't know if this is the last one or not, but everything is indicating that we're gonna go more to EVs. And again, the biggest thing is this, is the language it speaks. The power builds. It's just melodic, and as it builds, you can hear it, you can experience it, you can feel it. The difference with an EV is it still hits the performance numbers, but it's much more like flicking a switch. There's less emotion involved in that. And that's why this is an absolutely amazing car to get. If you want to see more about this car that I didn't answer, and there's a lot I've left out in this review, if you wanted me to dig into just the details, I will come back and dig into just the menus of the screen if that's what you want. I'll go through every single menu, show you every single screen. Whatever you want to see about this car, let me know and I'll make sure I come back to you in future videos. And I want to thank you again, thank Riverview Ford for giving me access to this vehicle and a whole bunch more here. They are absolutely awesome. If you're coming here, I don't know if you've noticed in this video, but it is always busy here. The service is packed. There's a lot of people here all the time. They do a ton of business and they've earned that. I think they do a great job with it. So give them credit. The link is in the description if you want to connect with them. They're my favorite Ford dealer around here. So thanks everybody for watching. We'll talk to you in the next one.